I'm going live.
Hello, and welcome to episode 10 of Talking Tech. I am your host, and Craig has locked the camera on him. There we go. Now, how's it working now? No? Whatever, it apparently just won't go to me. Alright, whatever. Hello, welcome to episode 10 of Talking Tech, the podcast of MobileTechTalk.co.uk. Sorry, mine just went a bit weird for a second. We've taken a few weeks off, and we've now relocated the podcast. I am Dom. I have Craig and Mark with us today, and
Hi guys.
let's just start. So first off is some news that came out today, which is probably one of the only interesting things that have happened recently. Is WhatsApp have announced they're getting rid of their very small annual charge, and they're going completely free. So, do either of you use WhatsApp?
I do, to communicate with just a couple of people, so we can get a multiplayer game going every now and again, but that's about it.
Mark?
No, I don't use WhatsApp because they demand my phone number and they can go and shove it.
Fair enough. So, WhatsApp used to charge an annual fee of 69 pence, or 99 cents if you're in the States. You could buy multiple years at a time, and I think 2 or 3 years ago I paid for 5 years and it cost me £5. Something like that, and then it didn't bother me all that much. But it obviously bothered a lot of people because they're getting rid of it. Now they're nearing, I think it's nearing 1 billion. Is it 1 billion? Yeah, nearly 1 billion users after the Facebook acquisition. And they're just it turns out the model doesn't scale very well. Some of the places we're entering into, not everyone has a debit card or a PayPal account, something like that. So what they've done is just scrap it. I think they're refunding some people, but not everyone. So I think it's if you bought it within the last month or so, they're fine, we'll give you a refund of your 99 pence, you petty bastard.
Not even that, is it? It's 99 cents, isn't it?
Yeah, no, sorry, I've just opened up WhatsApp on my phone. It's 1 year is 69 pence, 3 years is £1.86, and 5 years is £2.59.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's now. So mine would have expired in 2019. But I don't actually know how they're going to monetize this now, because they're not they're not passing the information to Facebook so they can put ads on it. They're not putting ads on the service. They said they're going to focus on getting businesses to use WhatsApp and get revenue that way. Kind of gets me worried. WhatsApp goes down often enough that I try not to recommend it to some people, let alone businesses.
Well, so, I don't know. I can kind of see as a messaging platform. It was a few years back now. Companies were starting to use Skype so that you could communicate with them, via text, because people wanted to communicate with the company over instant messaging. And if you're a sort of medium, small company, using WhatsApp is going to be a hell of a lot easier than using some sort of proprietary program you've either developed yourself or paid Cisco money for. The one that springs to mind is Carphone Warehouse. If you ever poke around their website, after 2 minutes, you'll get a little, "Oh, would you like to chat to somebody?"
Yeah.
And if you're a sort of small business, you could just say, "Okay, I'll pay WhatsApp, 20 quid a year, and people can message me that way."
I think you've tried to make a good defense of WhatsApp there for business use, Mark. But I think the truth is that there's more than enough business-oriented instant messaging platforms out there for people. Whether it's Link, whether it's Slack, whether it's...
I actually used Slack the other day at work. It's actually way better than I thought it was going to be.
There's quite a few good mediums, and I think they're probably not going to even bother monetizing it. I mean, they're now, they're owned by Facebook. They can probably just keep that user base flowing and occasionally, I don't know, add a few more features and just get a few more people involved in the wider Facebook family, so to speak, and just kind of run it as sort of a loss leader. They're just mining data, and away they go.
See, yeah, they're mining the data, but they're not sharing. Like the Facebook and WhatsApp data are very separate, very much like the Facebook and Instagram. Like that's stuff's a fair bit closely integrated, but like the WhatsApp guys were very, very much adamant on the Facebook acquisition. It was we are still two very separate companies. There is a definite fight. It's almost like the Google Motorola thing, where yes, they are owned by they're the same technical company, but they are still two very different. And they wanted to say, like, look, we're not selling your information to Facebook advertisers so we can sell you slippers. So
I think you're right, Dom. I think the one thing that kind of might blur that line is ask yourself whether WhatsApp would be able to give this app away free without the backing of Facebook. Yeah. And I would suggest not. And therefore,
I highly doubt it.
Someone somewhere is getting something out of the fact that it's now going free.
Well, the one issue that we don't know is how much does it actually cost WhatsApp to run.
It can't be
tiny.
Yeah, but it can't be a small cost because there are billions of messages going through them every day.
Yeah, but they're leveraging Facebook's economy of scale now. I mean, when you look at what Facebook infrastructure has to be in order to deliver that platform.
Yeah, and the quantity of data involved in WhatsApp is tiny.
Yeah.
The fact is, we don't have the numbers. We don't know how much it costs.
No.
But if their business model had said free for the first year, and then we'll charge you a whopping whole $1, I'm assuming it's costing them very little.
Quick question on this then before we move on, I suppose, Don. But how many of these types of instant messaging applications do we actually need as an ecosystem? And I'm talking about smartphone ecosystem here, not Apple versus Android. Before anybody gets angry and starts tweeting.
I mean, fine with them having. Sorry, do you want to finish what you're saying?
No, I was just going to say. I think there's only so many people that you can reach with this. There's many, many, many other platforms. Facebook Messenger's got its own instant messaging application anyway.
And got its own problems.
And I wonder why we need another one anyway. So maybe this eventually will get phased out and some of the best features will be pulled into Facebook. I know that wasn't the plan originally, but the plan was also to charge for the app, and that's gone swanny.
See, I'm fine with companies having proprietary messaging solutions like WhatsApp or formerly, not WhatsApp, iMessage or formerly BBM and stuff like that. But apparently my house phone's ringing. So messaging solutions that are cross-platform, though, I don't want to say, because if I say, a small number like 5 messaging apps is a lot. Like, cross-platform, there's WhatsApp, there's Telegram, there's BBM, there is... I'm struggling to think of 5.
There's Line, there's Viber, there's Telegram, there's Hangouts.
I used Telegram the other day. Telegram is kind of like a bizarro WhatsApp. It's really strange.
The secure one.
Yeah, it's
the one that advertises itself as being more secure.
Yeah.
You can put Snapchat in there as well if you want.
Oh, don't get me started. The meshing aspect of WhatsApp, Snapchat is super weird.
I'm just saying it.
I don't think Snapchat is used for written communication.
Oh no, you'd be very surprised, especially among younger people. My little brother, I think if he was born in 2001, how old would he be? He's going to be 15 this year. I'm very good with ages, apparently. The main way he communicates with his friends is via the text portion of Snapchat. And it's really strange. I was like, do you not want to have a record of your communications? It's like, I forget what I say all the fucking time. Like, that's why I have a record, so I can go back and read what I've done.
I don't know. Maybe it's an age thing. I like to keep records of things as well.
Like,
wouldn't everybody want
like we
a
like
proper cross-platform messaging system? Like back in the good old days, I know I'm going to shout IRC out here, but back in the good old days, there was
back in the good old days of IRC.
Trillion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Trillion. Let's talk about converging these platforms into one. That even
Pigeon
was
as well.
done,
I quite like Pigeon.
just commoditized them.
Well, to be honest, I still think the best cross-platform messaging system was text messages.
Yeah, but that has its own like SMS in itself is a bloody hack on the GSM.
It is, but everybody had it. It didn't matter who made your phone, or basically, when your phone was made. If you want to have the, cheap ass, free with a packet of cornflakes Nokia 110 whatevers, that's fine. You could text anybody, and you knew that they would get it. Their phone would support it. None of this. Oh, do you have Kik? Oh, do you have WhatsApp? Oh, do you have this?
Yeah, and the very close second place is email. Not everyone has an email, but it doesn't matter who has email, you can email them. Doesn't matter if it's Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Outlook. Apple still apparently operates a mail service. I didn't know. If text messaging is number one, email is number two. All techies hate email. It's kind of like all techies hate Skype. The only reason we all hate Skype and email is because we have to use Skype and email all the time. Normal people that don't have to use it all the time fucking love it. My mum loves Skype.
I think lots of people have to use email. Yeah.
I think we're just going to move on because we're going to get angrier and angrier at this.
It's got to be a good thing though, right? Just to kind of cover it off. People don't have to pay for this now.
Oh yeah, like I said, the first year they get a lot of people, and then a high proportion of the people that joined in that year would leave because they couldn't afford to pay.
I don't know. I would say no, this isn't a good thing, because to me it just says they're going to do something else with Facebook. There's a reason I don't have WhatsApp, because they're not getting my phone number, because my phone number is an awesome number and I can remember it. So, yeah, companies are not getting it willy-nilly, and not sure as fuck for the sake of, a pound. Facebook.
Did you leave your tin hat off this evening for the podcast? Yeah.
I actually have two WhatsApps. One is my actual phone number. The second one is my Skype mobile number. So I actually pay Skype a monthly fee to get a number, and I have a WhatsApp through my Skype.
I feel like I'm on an episode of The Enemy of the State or something.
If you want a VoIP SIPgate.
Oh yeah.
SIPgate, I've got an account with them. I had it for ages. I very infrequently use it, but it's really handy if you ever need to phone abroad, because it's a penny every 20 minutes or something silly.
Wow. So time will tell whether this is good or bad. But if we don't move on, we're going to get pissed off and we're going to speak about this for the next 45 minutes. So, moving on, Anantech, the venerable technology blog, no longer run by Anand Al-Shimpi, but, whatever, have reviewed the Huawei Mate 8. And they have said the same thing that pretty much every person or site that reviews a Huawei device is. Man, this is great hardware. God damn that software.
Can I just change that from saying what everyone says about a Huawei phone to what everybody says about practically every Chinese phone?
Yes. I'll take that. We have EMUI with Huawei and Honor devices. We have, Vibe UI on Lenovo devices. We have MIUI on Xiaomi devices. And a lot of these user interfaces are developed for their Eastern audiences and often either poorly adapted for Western audiences or not adapted at all. And a lot of the things that work over there just don't work over here. So they have weird things like knuckle sensing gestures that have either no use or are very hard to market over here. They have very iOS-inspired interfaces because, to my understanding, it wasn't possible to get an iPhone in China until very recently. Through official channels, it was very hard to get an iPhone in China. So a lot of these manufacturers would skin their devices to look Apple-ish, to get like that. But they, apart from the software, which this guy actually didn't rag on it that hard. Like I think it's Andre that did this. Yeah, Andre Frumasanu. Frumasanu, yeah. I butchered that, but I'm going to carry on. So there are a lot of like amazing things in this phone. Chief amongst which is the Kirin 950. So Craig, do you want to speak a bit about the 950 or?
I don't know an awful lot about it.
I can if you want me to. So.
I think the fact that the other Kirin, depending on how you wanna say it, the other Kirin phones that I've used seem to work very well out the box. Don't need a lot of configuration, don't need a lot of patching, don't need a lot of updating, and also seem to dissipate heat quite well. So they don't get quite toasty either. Which we know some of the Qualcomm chips of the last. I was going to say the last 12 months, but probably the next 12 months as well, have suffered from. I think generally performance has been good, and Kirin is something that I hadn't even heard of until the Honor devices came out with them, and obviously Huawei's kind of taken them on into their flagship. I don't actually know how well it performs, but looking at synthetic benchmarks, it seems to kick the ass of some of the existing flagships. Again, synthetic benchmarks there.
From everything I've heard from like hands-on, I haven't had a hands-on with the Mate 8. I wish I have, but I didn't get to go to CES. We're not going to MWC. I might be able to get one from someone.
Well, Huawei's watching, so they'll send us one.
Yeah, why not? They love us. It's not like they respond to emails at all. So from everything I've heard from like anecdotal experiences, people have been saying this is faster than the Nexus 6P, which was previously like the hot damn fast phone. Yeah, this is.
What about the GPU in it though, Dom? That's the only thing that worries me in a lot of Asian phones, and Kirin phones are no different as far as I'm concerned. The SoC side.
This is one of the better things, but also kind of perplexing things. So for the longest time, I think it's the last 2 or 3 generations, maybe even longer, of Kirin chips, they have used the Mali T628 MP4, which is a 4-core GPU of the 600 series. It was bad. It was very bad, and it was still used in up to the Honor 7, because that's using the Kirin 935. It will work at 1080p. Anything further than that it's really pushing it. It's a very old chip at this point. It's running out. It doesn't support the new Android extension pack, and it just wasn't a very good chip to begin with. It was never very efficient, and they quickly what's it called? Put out its successor.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, the Huawei and the Kirin guys decided to stick with it for whatever reason. With the 950, they are using the Mali T880 MP4. So the T880 is the high-end GPU.
High.
No, it is actually the highest-end GPU currently in the Mali lineup.
Yeah.
Apart from the MP4 at the end, which means it's a 4-core GPU again. Now that doesn't sound bad at all, and it isn't. Until you realize that Samsung is using that same GPU in a 16-core configuration on the S7.
Yeah.
Or not in the S7, in the Exynos 8890, which is more than likely going into the S7. So
yeah, to be honest, I don't necessarily see that as being a great problem, unless you are an avid gamer and you must run all the latest 3D games.
Yeah.
Because I mean, certainly when you're saying about the older Kirin chipsets, which I have a P8 sitting on my desk. CPU on it, it was absolutely fine. Sure, if you fire up 3D benchmarks, it starts to suffer. But that's fine because I don't sit and play. I'm not sitting trying to play Crysis or Halo on my phone. So the fact that the new one's going to come out with the quad-core GPU versus Samsung and their, oh my god, we've thrown everything, including the kitchen sink, into the G7, it's fine. It's a phone. It's not a console.
until you realize that Samsung used the T760, I think it is, the previous gen high-end GPU in an 8-core configuration, and just smoked everything else out there GPU-wise last year until Apple came along.
Well, that's true, but I'm just
So like
thinking.
they like it's a good GPU and it's doing really well, but we need to remember this is the first time we're seeing the T880 and it's the first time we're seeing an A72 in mobile.
Well, these things are all
and it's
true,
only going to get better.
In the same breath, how many of us with computers are all running NVIDIA, 980s, or Radeon 390Xs.
I'm about to say, if you were saying 3990, that's a fair bit older.
Yeah.
Even 390s.
Fact is, we don't actually all need that. For most people, shitty Intel integrated graphics is fine.
I mean, Intel came out a couple of days ago and said for 80% of the use cases, the Iris and Iris Pro GPUs are more than acceptable. They're better than the discrete graphics cards. So like the GTX 750 Ti and the R7, I think it's 250, maybe it was 240. But they were saying the Iris and Iris Pro graphics, for the games people are playing, if you go in Steam and see what people are playing, so like Team Fortress 2, Dota and everything, the Iris Pro and Iris graphics are more than capable of delivering an incredibly satisfactory experience. And I believe that. So I see what you're saying, which is that most people aren't going to need the 16-core GPU. But for the people that are interested in things like specs, which in a lot of other ways, this CPU does have great specs.
Yeah, the CPU is
let down
is great.
by the GPU.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of been sort of, I think, the hallmark of the Curins. They've focused far more on the CPU side of things, and the GPU side of things, not so much. But again, to take it to computers, that's like getting, a high-end Core i7 and using the integrated graphics on it. If the things that you're doing on it, if all you're trying to do is compile some, million by million cell Excel spreadsheet.
Welcome to hell, by the way.
But CPU matters to you, matters to what you're doing. You want the fastest. The GPU, it's not going to make any difference.
I think the GPU's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in terms of everyday use, it's probably going to sit quite a lot higher than sort of the PowerVR sort of gubbins that we see in some of the other stuff.
Everything apart
that I've actually got in my daily drive at the moment, and probably quite a lot underneath the latest sort of, well, probably the 820 and the latest Exynos chips that are going to be out and running the flagships of this year. So to me, that's not going to be a bad thing. I've just wondered what people's views on that was. I think the CPU architecture as a whole is fine. What's the price of these particular devices? They've got a couple of different configurations, haven't they?
Yeah, let me just check this. It's not cheap. It's priced like a normal company's flagship, so like $600-700.
Yeah, it's like $600 for 4 gig, 64 gig storage configuration.
Yeah, so 32 gig and 3 gigs of RAM is €599. 4 gigs and 64 gigs of RAM is €699, and for the 4 gig 128 gig, there is not even a European price.
Yeah, we're not getting it.
Yeah.
Don't worry, don't give that price, anyone's buying it.
It's like the 128 gig Mate S with Force Touch. I think it was only available in China. So I want to see. I want to get hands on with this. Not to buy because a 6-inch phone is way too big for me. I want to try the Kirin 950, which kind of makes me wish it's coming to Honor devices soon enough. So if we see like the Honor 8 with the Kirin 955 or something like that. But I want to see a quad core, so like 2 A35s and 2 A72s in a big little configuration, because I don't need 4 of each. So again, we'll see how this turns out, but for the moment, a lot of people have been saying like with stock Android they'd buy this.
I think to go back to Mark's point, when you look at the Honor devices, the Xiaomi devices, the Meizu devices, Huawei's own devices, I think if any of them were to have like GPE at the end of their name, I think everybody would jump all over them, especially for the prices that some of the more budget conscious brands are flogging them. The interesting thing for me on this is the fact that, just jumping around again, it's back to the specs, 6-inch screen, 1080p. To me, that says everything about what we should be doing with screen technology and what flagships are refusing to.
I'm perfectly fine with 1080p at 6 inches.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm the same person that's perfectly fine with 720p at 5 inches. So, whatever. Take that as you wish. But I was speaking with Simon Osborne, who is at Flibblsan on Twitter. We were speaking about a similar thing, which is Chinese companies' user interfaces in the West and how they translate. And we both said, like, if Honor came out with a Cyanogen edition of the Honor 7, we'd both buy it. Straight. Like, despite some other issues I have with the phone, like no NFC, I would find the money to buy that phone. Because it's an amazing build, great screen, really capable camera, fast fingerprint sensor, and accurate fingerprint sensor, like, quite importantly.
Good battery.
And good battery. And it's just, the only problem I really had with the Honor 7 was EMUI. And you put Cyanogen OS, it'd be if it was the commercial one. If you put Cyanogen OS on there, you take away my only real issue with it. So we'll put the link to all these topics in the description of the podcast. So again, the Huawei Mate 8 is it's actually a really great phone, and a lot of people have been reviewing it. So obviously the embargo lifted, and actually this Anantech review actually came out quite soon. They're usually the people that take like 8 months to review something. So Craig, do you want to speak about the next one quick, or Mark?
Okay.
Well, which one are we going with next?
I was waiting for Mark to jump in. So
Spatial audio.
Google adding better. I'm gonna use that a lot. Better audio to cardboard's virtual reality. Okay, fine. So everybody probably knows, or everybody watching, all one of you, anybody watching this after the fact probably knows what Google Cardboard is. It's the pseudo VR cheap way of getting VR on your phone. It's Google's cheap version of Gear VR from Samsung, effectively, without the newfangled bits and pieces you have to put a Samsung phone in. And my understanding of this is that they've made it a little bit better. Cardboard Plus is what I would have called it personally, but whatever.
So what they're really speaking about here is when you're doing head tracking and things like that, more likely with headphones more than anything else, but audio is what really will take you out of the experience. Or especially on something like this, if the screen is also going to take you out of the experience. But whatever. A lot of the thing that's going to take you out would be audio. So lagging or perception of where the audio is actually coming from. A while ago, AMD tried to do a very similar thing on die called True Audio, which was a DSP that was programmable that you could use for 3D audio. So if you were in Tomb Raider and a rock fell from the cliff behind you, you'd hear it as if it was there. Yeah. So it's fake surround sound, but done under the specialized DSP instead of on the CPU. Google is obviously going to try and do it on the CPU or the GPU here, and I'm wondering how well that's going to turn out. But having 3D spatial audio is going to be very interesting.
Well, one of the things, I don't know if either of you will be aware, because you're both slightly less audio-focused than myself. I take it you're all familiar with like Dolby Pro Logic and 5.1 surround. Mm-hmm. Well, they're essentially moving to a new system where instead of encoding all the channels discretely, so you have to position speakers exactly here, exactly there, exactly here. What they're trying to do is essentially give a 3D position to the audio. Okay. And then your decoder then works out where your speakers are, alters the timings to accurately give you a 3D audio picture. So what I'm thinking is if Google are trying to jump on board with that and trying to get sort of films and whatnot that are going to be coming out with positionally encoded audio rather than sort of static positionals as we currently have, that maybe that's what they're going to try and do. But to be honest, like, who's using cardboard to like watch movies?
It's very gimmicky of a thing to like having again, like the spatial audio thing is pretty cool. Like you'll be able to hear where something happens behind you, blah blah blah. That makes more sense in something like Rift or Vive, especially on Vive, which is a whole room experience, or even Gear VR, which is where there is a headset and it is strapped to your face. Something like this where you are holding it up to your face, and you're probably going to be using the speakers, not headphones. Don't really see that much of a point, but the idea of it is cool. I think that's where
the reason why I started to kind of use air quotes as in it's getting better is not that I don't think VR is a good thing, and innovations with that Oculus and HTC are bringing with the Rift and the Vive respectively. I think everything seems to be moving forward exactly as everybody would like. I'm still not seeing a widespread use case for VR yet. I'm seeing very niche applications. I'm seeing lots of small tweaks and fixes and smaller steps forward in terms of the actual platform itself. And this, to me, just sits within that bucket, as far as I'm concerned. Show me something with medical application, show me something with manufacturing or production application, show me something with design application, and I'll see a benefit. At the moment, the only thing that VR is being touted for, as far as I'm concerned, on the mainstream is gaming, and I think that's going to be a total disaster. I really do.
You've just put something in my head, and it now makes total sense. Elon Musk showed a while ago a concept of designing space, like rocket parts, in a virtual environment. I think he took the idea from Iron Man. So he had like leap motion. Like, this is how far ago leap motion was still like relevant. He had like a leap motion. He started manipulating it on his screen. Then he did like a glass projection. So he projected it onto like two pieces of glass, and he could go in between them and do the same thing. Yeah. Then he eventually went on to a Rift DK1, so the first development kit for the Oculus Rift. He strapped a leap motion to the front, and again did the same thing. So imagine if he doing, like you said, like design, like CAD. So where again, I'm going to use Vive as the example here because it's a full room. If you're like building shit, like say you have a VR room in your office, that's cool. You walk in there, you put the headphone on, and you're designing a race car. You can walk up to this virtual car. You can like pick off like the what's it called, the bonnet.
Yeah.
You can like lift the engine out and like expand the engine, and like in virtual space, and you can walk around it. You can like it's completely like useless for most people, but if you can find a use for it.
I think that's the use case, and I think at the moment all I hear is people going, "Wow, it will be like Iron Man. I'll be able to explode things, and it'll look just like out of Avengers." Yeah. And I'm going, "Well, okay, great. That'll be awesome for 30 minutes."
Yeah.
I want to see practical use cases for it. And
to be honest,
playing Skyrim VR, I don't think it's going to cut it.
VR, for as long as I can remember, has always been, oh, it's coming, it's coming. I remember back in the day when they had, it was always blue and yellow, and this big gigantic thing on your head. And
early 90s, yeah.
And just, it's one of these things. It's like SodaStream.
Before my time, I'm gonna say.
It's like SodaStream. Every handful of years, it makes a comeback, and people suddenly go, "Ooh, that's so cool! That's awesome!" They get one, they play around with it for an hour, and they go, yeah.
I do have a SodaStream.
In my head, you talking about SodaStream, it just came to my head. VR is going to be a very QVC type product. That's the only place we're ever going to see VR.
Well, I said that the other week. It has to be the Amazon Oculus Fire, where you put the headset on and you wander around the Amazon store.
Medical training, that's something I was just thinking about. like virtual surgeries and stuff for like doctors and stuff that can't quite, like, you don't trust them working on actual cadavers yet. It's like, no, it's fine. Have this cushion and a VR headset. It's close enough.
So
yeah, because a corpse isn't like, what are they going to do? Ruin it?
I mean, like, they still have a very limited amount of corpses to test on. There's still a limited amount of cadavers for them to work on.
I suppose, but I mean, is that a pressing problem? I mean, I live in Edinburgh.
The amount of doctors they're training? Yeah.
Well, is it? No, but they said we don't really train that many. We get them from the Philippines and South Africa, where I don't think it's such an issue.
But just bringing it back to cardboard for a second, number one, this probably isn't going to be used in that environment unless they're doing autopsies with their feet, because they'll be holding the cardboard like that. But number two, I can see why this is...
Yeah, I don't know, unless it's going to go to, like, the, virtual lap dances, I don't see, like...
That says everything. Something I remember when cardboard first came out, there were people putting, like, 3D cardboard videos on YouTube that were essentially like lap dances. I remember that coming out. It was all over like Android blogs and stuff at the time. But them like showing the amount of effort they're putting into this makes me think that they've got a very different vision for cardboard very soon.
Oh, I think so, and I think I'm waiting for that. At the moment, these tiny little increments are hopefully building up to something big. However, I said that about Google Glass, and not so much yet.
All right, moving on. We have Nexus Imprint possibly not learning as well as we thought. So when I think it's Dave Burke is at Google now, when they announced the Nexus 5X and 6P, Nexus Imprint was made a big deal about. It's the fingerprint sensors on both of those devices, and they said that it would learn. So if you put your finger ever so slightly off what it knew, it would still recognize you and add that part that you just put on. So it'd eventually have a really high resolution, really accurate map of your finger. Well, Russell Holly over at Android Central managed to put a nice slice through his fingertip that he used for Nexus Imprint. Not too deep that it just wouldn't stop bleeding, but deep enough to obviously damage his fingerprint, and therefore Nexus Imprint wouldn't work. But at this point, he said he'd been using it for a couple of months. It should have learned all the periphery bits that having a bit down the middle missing shouldn't be this much of an issue. So do we think this is I don't want to say confined experience, but do we think it's common?
I went on to when we were looking at this story, I went on to the boats, and there's over 50% of people in the boats are basically saying it's operating exactly the same as it was when I set it up. That could arguably not be a very scientific poll, simply because probably everybody that's using a fingerprint scanner is using it exactly the same as they were when they first bought the phone. But it's not that I don't think this is supposed to happen. It's just when you go through, anybody who's used the fingerprint sensor on any phone will tell you that the process, no matter what phone, is pretty much the same nowadays. Used to be that you swiped your finger over it, and now you press and you do it in different orientations.
But that was one of the big things they were saying about Nexus Imprint. There's only 6 images it takes, and the reason it's such a small amount is because it's meant to learn. So I think when I had the Xperia Z5 Compact, that was like between 15 and 20 images it took. It took fucking forever to set up. It's still shit.
I don't think this is going to answer your question, Don. I don't think this is going to be confined to this particular device in this particular person's hand, in Russell's hand. I think it's going to be across the Nexus space, and I think they just found a way of speeding up the fingerprint setup process and decided to give it a bit of a name, frankly.
Well, then they shouldn't have advertised its learning.
Lots of OEMs have done with lots and lots and lots of features in the past. Unfortunately, someone somewhere has kind of shown them up.
I mean, call it fast unlock. I mean, like, I think it's Huawei or someone like that advertises like 0.3 seconds or 0.1 second of like it takes this long to unlock. Like, cool, call it fast unlock. Don't say it's learning. Like, that's what I find the deceitful bit.
Well, we've got no evidence either way, other than circumstantial at the moment. I think what I'd like someone to be able to point out is how the Nexus Imprint platform actually works. When does it learn? How does it learn? What increments does it actually look at? What images does it store? And how the actual platform actually works. At the moment, as far as I'm concerned, I look at all these fingerprint scanners and tie them all with the same brush, in that if you're going to manage to put your finger in the same place every single time, it will work flawlessly. As soon as you kind of do something slightly out of the ordinary, you're in trouble. And I've never really kind of gone down the road of thinking Nexus Imprint was going to be any different.
Yeah. Well, I found on the site, it does say the quote they used during the 6P presentation. What's really cool is that Nexus Imprint gets better over time. With each use, it learns more about your unique fingerprint. So they're saying every time you tap your finger down on it, every time you put it a little tiny bit off, it learns a little bit more each time. That would be fine if that's apparently what it's doing. But
yeah, this seems to prove otherwise, or at least suggest otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to call them liars because we don't know. We don't know enough information about how it's learning, like the algorithms it's using. It might actually be getting faster, and the slice in Russell's fingertip is so much worse than he thought. We don't know.
Well, we don't know this is my point. If someone comes out and says, well, actually, all it actually does is every quarter, every 3 months, it actually goes through a back catalogue of some of the images it's taken and takes a snapshot and then creates a new fingerprint to compare to your fingerprint when you're trying to unlock it. If that's the case, then fine. This is why this guy Russell's having a bit of an issue, because I think he said somewhere that he's only had it about 6 weeks or so. We don't know, but it would suggest that it's probably no different than any other fingerprint scanner.
I don't know, Mark. What's your thoughts on this? You've been strategically quiet on the fingerprint sensor front.
Well, I don't normally use fingerprint scanners apart from the one on my laptop.
Listen, you have a fingerprint scanner on your laptop?
Yeah.
Do you have Windows 10?
Yes, I do now on it.
Do you use Windows Hello on it, or is it not compatible?
Windows Hello?
Yeah, they're biometric login stuff, so you can set up fingerprints, or if you've got one of those fancy Intel cameras.
Oh, to be honest, I did it as an upgrade from Windows 7, and so I set it up on 7. But to be honest, I mean, that's just because it's there and it's slightly quicker than my typing in a password.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a retarded non-story. This is just he was bored and he went, oh, I cut my finger, I want sympathy, and decided to write a story about it. So, okay, fair enough, but yeah. It's like if you actually take a look at the striations on your finger, they're actually really, really, really small. So you slice your finger, even if it's only quite a small cut, yeah, it's actually proportionally going to make quite a difference. So yeah, I'm not surprised if it suddenly doesn't work.
I've actually got 3 fingers over both hands that just can't be used for any type of fingerprint recognition at this point. I've burnt them and cut them and done so much just random shit to them. Just by being an idiot and taking things out of the oven when I shouldn't and stuff. They're just,
no, you can still do
damaged.
that. I mean, I have one of my fingers when I was young,
No, this is
sliced it.
This is Touch ID was there's no finger here. Touch ID does the same thing the Samsung
fingerprint sensors, not so much for you, Dom.
Yeah, it's people can unlock Touch ID with a fucking nipple, and my pinky finger doesn't exist apparently. So
I want to throw one thing out here then. And it's probably the one thing that I could gush about for half an hour when it came to the Lumia 950 is Windows Hello and the iris scanner worked flawlessly.
I will fight you on this. I will fight you to the death on this.
It worked flawlessly for me every single time.
It might be because I wear glasses. I don't know. It was a pile of shit.
It's supposed to be fine with glasses, but okay. My point was that I think fingerprints, for the longest time, people were talking about fingerprint sensors, and then before that it was, well, can't we have a smart card to be able to log onto our desktops? People still use passwords or pins because
if they can, they'll use nothing. If they can, they'll use nothing.
I don't know how much of a problem this will be with the Nexus 6P users. I would imagine it will still be an issue, but I honestly don't believe that this is any different from any other fingerprint sensor in terms of
no, this is just, it's not a story. It's you cut your finger and it stopped working for you. Okay, that's it. There's no story.
So, moving on, I need to get a drink of something, so I'm going to let one of you guys read this next one, okay? It's the Stanford researchers find a way to stop lithium batteries before they explode.
Just walk away on the most technical story, Dom. That's fine.
Okay, I'm just going to go.
Okay, well, I haven't read the story, so...
Say again, Mark?
I said I haven't read the story, so if you want to...
Okay, so I don't know too much about this, but I do know that lithium batteries, when it got to a certain point in terms of the heating process, lots of chemical things happened, and we ended up having Xperia phones exploding in people, allegedly exploding in people's pockets, and many other phones exploding in people's pockets. Granted, we're not talking about huge amounts. We're talking about a very, very small part per million in terms of the amount of times this actually happened with people. My understanding is that these guys and girls in Stanford are using nanotechnology, which is always cool, creating some sort of flexible set of metal particles to kind of coat the graphene, and therefore offset the kind of the conductive properties in terms of the battery.
No, I think just having sort of skimmed through it there, I think what it actually is using the conductive coating on the graphene to transfer electricity as you want the battery to do. But what it's doing that's creating the safety aspect of is when it gets warm.
Yes.
It's essentially twisting and expanding and creating a little gap, so the current can't flow, which is what happens in a battery when it starts getting too hot. Essentially, the current starts flowing too quickly. It's like when you short circuit batteries. That's how you get them to get very warm and exploding. And this acts as a physical valve, as it were, separating them. So, okay, that's kind of clever. But, okay, this is...
I just like the fact that you're
not impressed, Mark, no?
Well, it's like, okay, if this was a huge problem that we couldn't use lithium-ion or lithium polymer batteries because they were exploding every 20 minutes, okay, then this is like, this is earth-shattering. But, okay, how many lithium-ion or lithium polymer batteries are on aircraft every single day?
We're putting them in cars now and everything as well.
Millions of them. How many of them are bursting into flames?
I mean, if you're talking about Boeing in like I think it's like 787s, a couple of them in a row kind of went off. I think they might have gotten dodgy cells though.
Yeah.
I mean,
but we've all seen the YouTube videos where you've seen a laptop sitting and suddenly it starts to smoke and then flames. Yes, it's catastrophic when they do go, so having a safety valve in there is nice. But this isn't it. This is the Hindenburg. It's like when it goes, it's spectacular, but
I think it's more of an issue we're seeing at the moment with cheap lithium batteries in those, I'm not calling them hoverboards, self-balancing scooter type things.
Well, that's fine. Do you think the cheap ones are going to be adding in this technology?
Exactly. The problem with those is they're using cheap ones, and this is using graphene, which means it's not going to be cheap. Simple as. What did you say, Craig?
Brilliant innovation, and I think I was going to say long overdue, but that kind of belittles what they've done. I'm not belittling it in any.
It's really clever what they've done. It's really clever. I'll absolutely grant them that. This is you get a kick-ass PhD out of that. I'm just not sure it's actually all that super duper practical. It's like. Batteries aren't. I've got I don't know how many lithium polymer batteries on my desk right now. They're not exploding every 20 minutes.
In my smartphone career, which is coming up to 7-8 years, I have only ever had one lithium battery go bad on me, and that was in my Nexus 4.
And was all that happened was it got a little bit bulgy?
It got hot, swelled, and pushed the phone apart, but it didn't damage anything else.
Okay,
it didn't explode, it didn't do anything else. Yeah. That's the only thing. That's the only time I've ever had anything. Actually, come to think of it, I've never had any like bad nickel cadmium batters, nickel metal hydride batters either. So.
The one thing I'd say on this then is brilliant, well done, guys at Stanford and girls at Stanford, and
make it cheap.
Other people at Stanford. But if this was a problem, it would have been fixed a long, long time ago, because smartphones have been about for a while, and devices that use these sort of batteries have been around for a while. So if this was a widespread problem, someone somewhere would have been shouting from the rooftops to get it fixed. The fact that this has kind of slowly been trickled along, and people have probably been shouting across the office, "How you doing on that project? Oh, okay, fine. Come back in another 6 months. See how you're doing." It's a pet project for someone. It's finally come to fruition. I'm sure it'll become standard going forward, but it's, as Mark said, I'm sure it's not that critical at the moment.
Yeah, it's a typical graphene project, which is it makes headlines, it's really cool, probably won't go anywhere, or if it does, it'll take a while.
No, I think this going forward will start to be incorporated.
Yeah.
I just think it's reducing the risk of a battery going pop and bursting into flames, but it's not that the risk is very high as it is.
Yeah. It's
making them safer, yeah, and that's good, because even a tiny chance of the battery, bursting into flames and whatnot. I mean, we've all seen, the EE power bars at work. So yeah, improvement. Safer is nicer.
You're getting me worried, Mark. I might think I want a sheet of graphene in this now. My very cheap, check 20,000 milliamp hour battery bank. Should probably throw some graphene on
that. One, you wouldn't be worrying.
Yeah, but a proper one wouldn't have cost me £8. So
that's true.
Yes.
There's probably a reason. But still, I'm actually going to jump forward in the dock, so I'm going to do 7 before 6, just because it's very quick. iOS 9 or 9.3 beta 1 makes things more 3D touchy. So they're just adding more 3D touch shortcuts into iOS. So like 3D touch on the settings icon, you can jump to Wi-Fi, to Bluetooth, to screen, stuff like that. It's cool. Probably should have been there from the beginning. You can like 3D touch on called the Health app, stuff like that. It's cool. It gives iOS 9.3 also introduced something called, I think it's night mode, which is basically f.lux after they kicked f.lux out of the App Store. It's another iOS beta. Huh?
Sorry, I know this is going off on a tangent, but is it as good as f.lux?
Oh, probably not. I highly doubt it.
Yeah, because...
Craig, have you got something near your microphone, like a phone or anything?
My hands.
Nothing else.
Phones on.
I have the Honor Band Z1. Maybe this is emitting some sort of radiation.
No, that's 900 megahertz GSM.
I'll move it away.
Yeah.
I think I've never actually used the 3D touch yet. I've seen it. It looks cool, and I've always wondered whether how intuitive it actually felt. From speaking to people that have used it. It actually, once you get used to it, works really, really well. So adding more features to it, well done.
I think I've used it very briefly. I obviously don't own an iPhone, but the ones I've used, if someone's told you about it and you use it, it's like, oh, that's cool. I can like jump straight to selfie mode in my camera or something like that. But the thing is, you don't know what apps are going to have it. You don't know how it's going to be implemented. Peek and pop sounds cool in theory, and then you kind of realize you have to search for instances to use it. I think before I'd actually used it, though, my biggest question was, how is this any different time-wise than a long press? So, like, if you long press on Android, it's like a half a second or whatever, and you
it's like a right click.
Yeah. So if you 3D touch, how much time does it save or anything like that, there isn't actually that much different. It is faster than long press, but that's if you're like purposely just pushing straight through.
Yeah.
But like most people I know that use it, they purposely do it slowly so they can feel each click, if that makes sense, or feel each click. It's weird, man. But I'll give Apple one thing. They did a really good job on the Taptic engine, the haptic motor on this thing.
Yeah, so I hear.
It is insane. Like, the only phone I've ever enjoyed the haptic motor on was the Nokia N9, which is going back a fair bit. But that had, like, the perfect amount of haptic feedback. Like, that keyboard was just, it was the shit. And nothing else has ever quite felt right. Like, the Lumia 920 had a fucking vibro motor that could, like, shake a surgical pin loose in your wrist if you held it too hard. But this feels, like, staggeringly close to that Nokia N9. And I haven't used a MacBook with a Force Touch trackpad, but apparently it's pretty much the same thing. Like, this perfectly replicates a physical click. And it...
Yeah, I'd imagine that would be a better medium in which to use 3D Touch, I would imagine. But yeah, adding more features to it. I think the only downside is that I know you probably wouldn't need 3D Touch on an Android phone, but the only downside is that iOS users are just going to have to wait for Apple to add more features to it. Whereas if this was on a slightly more open platform, with an open, I don't know, the API is not open to third-party developers, is it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, it is?
But they all seem to be doing the same thing with it, which is if you not long press, if you 3D touch our icon, you can have a few shortcuts. They don't seem to be doing very interesting stuff within the app.
Right, so it's a closed open API.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fine. But yeah, that's the only downside. I mean, they're just going to have to wait for a little bit more innovation from Apple. But it sounds like Apple, that's the one thing I do like about Apple is when they do implement something new, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be bare bones, but that bare bones is going to be pretty good. And then they build on it. And I think they've done that with 3D Touch.
Yeah, and I think that's all we really need to say on it. There's not all that much more. It's another iOS beta. It'll probably be out to the public in like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Only really useful in the 6S and 6S Plus because nothing else has 3D Touch. Night mode is cool. It's like on the Amazon Fire tablets, they've got what they call Blue Shade, which just strips out most of the blue light. Which, again, if you're on a Mac or a PC, you just or Android, install f.lux and go away with it.
Or whatever.
Or if you're on Cyanogen, you can have Live Display, which is the same thing. So, moving on. A while ago, we saw rumors of the Moto X 2014 carrier variants not getting Marshmallow. And there was a lot of hand-wringing, there was a lot of pissiness, and it turns out they were right. So the Verizon and AT&T versions of the Moto X 2014 are not getting Marshmallow officially. But Motorola will now let you unlock the bootloader, on the Verizon one at least. You can unlock the bootloader on the Verizon Moto X 2014 and there are no ramifications. So you don't lose your warranty like you did before. So this is essentially allowing you to install CyanogenMod. You'll lose your warranty for installing CyanogenMod, but you won't lose it for unlocking the bootloader. So.
I'm just reading. I thought it voided your warranty by unlocking the bootloader.
Yeah, no. Have you ever unlocked a bootloader on a Motorola device?
Not on Motorola, no.
They essentially you do it through a
yes, I have. Yeah.
fastboot MADB type stuff.
Yes,
they give you a special token. You have to give it on their website, which is locked to your phone, so that they know it's in a database somewhere now. It's cool. It's a good way to. It's not a good way. It kind of bypassed this shitty thing they were doing.
I think it's very interesting. It's setting a bit of a precedent. I don't think I can't think of another OEM that's done this. No, not off the top of my head. I think this is quite interesting.
Next bit is letting you unlock the bootloader with no ramifications.
Yeah, it's not going to be carrier variant though, is it? So it's going to be
there are no carrier variants, but there are 2 different SKUs of the next bit Robin.
The thing with the carrier variant issue, this isn't so much a carrier variant issue. This is a Verizon issue. This is specifically Verizon, also the fact that they use CDMA. To be honest, I kind of think anyone that is in America that has used a Verizon phone or dealt with Verizon in any way should know by now, if you give a shit about updates, you don't get a phone from Verizon. Going back to the Galaxy Nexus, which a lot of Americans were like, "Wow, yeah, we can get it on Verizon, yay!" And then they bitterly moaned and bitched constantly because they didn't get updates. And the simple fact was, no, it's not a Nexus, it's a Verizon phone.
Yeah, so basically the story that isn't really a story here is it costs money to certify devices for an update, and obviously they never made enough money on the Moto X 2014 to justify giving it the update.
This is more, I think, of a Verizon don't give a shit. They treat their customers badly. They always have done. They lock you in. They make you buy a device that you physically cannot use on anything other than their network, right? I mean, yeah. And yet customers keep going back to them and keep giving them money. You know, they won't update a Google Galaxy Nexus, right? What makes you think Verizon's going to give a toss about updating anything else?
Which is really strange because the first Moto X, the Verizon version got the update before anyone else, which freaked everyone the fuck out. The Moto X 2014 got like the 4.4 update like weeks before anyone else. And then then it never ever happened again. I think someone just hit the enter button a bit too early and was like, well, fuck it. It'll take us a lot more it'll take us a lot more time and effort to pull the update back. We've hit send. We'll just let it go through now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think anybody who gives a toss about updates and has given Verizon money for a phone, it's like, well, you know.
I think from a UK perspective, which is where we're all from, this, the whole Verizon thing is a bit alien to us because it's not something that we kind of have to deal with. But whenever we speak to anybody, whenever I've spoken to anybody that's had to deal with Verizon, I imported a Verizon phone probably about this time last year, and look, any sort of development, any sort of update from the carrier side of things was just a nightmare. And I mean, obviously, I'm not going to get support as a UK importer of a US-based Verizon handset, but speaking to people in that community to try and find out how to do bits and pieces of the other, it was just appalling, the sort of customer service they were getting. So you're right, Mark, people should know by now. And I think the good news here is that someone somewhere...
It's like people in this country. It's like if you deal with like British Gas or British Telecom or Orange, they're going to...
bend you over a barrel and not use lube?
That's more polite than what I was going to say, but yes, we'll go with that. You deal with these companies, you know what you're getting into. I just can't fathom why anyone should suddenly be shocked when a company that never updates anything doesn't update something. It's like,
yeah, I think the closest analog we have in the UK is EE, the biggest carrier. It has the most pull, but even then, EE isn't quite this bad. That you can buy a phone on EE, and as long as you get an unlock code, you can use it on Voda or 3 or O2.
Yeah, I mean, this is because just technologically, because Verizon used CDMA. Part of the reason Verizon...
They are clinging on to CDMA so hard.
Oh yeah, well the reason they wanted CDMA to begin with is because you don't buy... GSM has a SIM card.
Mm-hmm.
You pull that SIM card out, you stick any other one in, it's all GSM, it's all the same. Verizon CDMA phones don't do that, although the newest ones do because they want to work on LTE, and that requires one.
And
normally...
I'm just going to interject here, sorry, quick. The LTE network is governed by new FCC rules, so the LTE part of the modem of that phone has to be unlocked, which is hilarious. So the CDMA part of the phone can be locked, but the LTE part of the phone cannot be locked.
Well, it's not so much that the CDMA part is locked, it's that there is no billing or user information on a SIM card. It's in the handset. So the handset then communicates with the network, and the network says, yes, you can work, or no, you can't. So when you buy a Verizon CDMA phone, it can't work with anything else other than Verizon.
And the thing is, it doesn't even work with other CDMA networks. So in case people in the UK don't know, there are two CDMA networks in the US. There is Verizon and Sprint. If it works on Verizon, it will not work on Sprint.
I think the story here, though, is the fact that the OEMs have stepped up and said, fine, okay, the guys that have resold our services to you aren't up in the ante and aren't delivering what they should in terms of customer care, so we'll do it. And if nothing else, it's sticking two fingers up to Verizon and saying, we've got you guys, don't worry about it. And if anything, that's going to hurt Verizon more than anything that Verizon themselves have actually done.
No, it's not going to hurt Verizon. Trust me about this. The fact that Motorola still makes custom phones for Verizon proves that Verizon has Motorola by the balls.
But for how much longer? Now Lenovo's got hold of Motorola.
I think this has more happened because Lenovo looks at Verizon and sees it's one network in one country. It doesn't really give a shit. Whereas when Google was in charge, Google, as we all know, its global scope ends at Canada and Mexico, so they consider Verizon to be hugely important. And a Chinese company just looks at Verizon and says, it's one company, one country. Don't care.
Though, if you try and mirror it in the US...
Sorry, I was just going to say, the whole thing about Motorola was the fact that it was, it was very American. It was born and raised in the USA. Wore cowboy boots and cowboy hat, learned how to whip and herd buffalo and all that good stuff. And now Lenovo's got hold of them. That's not the case, and therefore their entire mindset, as Mark pointed out, they've got a much more global picture than Motorola or Google ever had.
Though if you look at the Chinese smartphone economy, it is almost a perfect mirror of the US, wherein there are two mobile phone networks that take home the lion's share of the profits. Is it three?
China, there's three companies and they all use different systems.
Yeah, I know of China Unicom and what's the other one?
Don't ask me to name them. There's China Mobile's one of them, but.
There's China Mobile, China Unicom, and there's another one.
Of course, China Mobile is the huge one.
Yeah.
And it's the one that uses some ridiculous
it's FDD
proprietary, Chinese
and everything else is TDD.
But their customer base is so huge.
Yeah.
And they have more consumers than there are mobile consumers in the whole of North America.
Yeah.
Right. They're just, it's on a scale where, to be fair, they can kind of get away with it.
Which always makes it funnier, to me anyway, as a terrible, terrible person. The fact that almost the same thing happens in their own country, and they're just like, no, fuck it, you're so small. Anyway, like I said, like Craig was saying, the thing that makes this important is the fact the OEM is giving the two fingers to the carrier for once. Alright, so moving on to our last topic, which is going to be a very fast one. I don't know if either of you are Rick and Morty fans. Do you watch the animated TV show Rick and Morty?
Negative.
I've never heard of it.
Do you want to give us it in a nutshell, Don?
I can't even explain it. You kind of have to watch it, even if you just watch an episode.
Come on, if two things had to marry up to make Rick and Morty, what would they be?
American Dad and American Dad, Family Guy, and a lot of drugs in the production offices, kind of. And there's only 2 seasons of Rick and Morty, so it won't take you that long to binge it. But pretty much they've cloned Pokemon, and made it, and you have to go and find Morty. So Rick is a scientist, a professor, and he goes on adventures and stuff with I think it's his granddaughter and grandson. So mostly it's Morty. Obviously, it's in their name. there's Pocket Mortys, and you go to different Pocket universes with Rick to fight and capture other Mortys who have lost their Ricks.
Sweet.
And it is almost exact. It's a Pokemon ripoff, like straight and clear. It's free. I don't know if it's on iOS yet, but it's on Android. Just go check it out.
Well, I have to say, it's an Adult Swim title, and I have in the past. Adult Swim is kind of funny.
Yeah. It's very much an adult show, and that carries over to the game. So even if you only play it for 5 minutes here and there, it's still kind of funny.
It's very tongue-in-cheek by the look of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to move on before I say something I probably shouldn't. So we're done with the news. I'm actually going to kind of merge the two topics we've got together because I do want to go quite soon. So 2015 kind of, to put it lightly, sucked for mobile. There were processor issues, there were battery issues, there were all kinds of things. Do we think that 2016 is going to be any different, and why? So I'm going to start with Mark, because reasons.
Yes. I think it's going to be different because basically this year it seems as though manufacturers have finally cottoned on that when you try and test consumers and you give them two devices and you say, oh, would you like this device to be thinner or not? And when you ask that question in isolation, consumers will go, oh, I'd like it to be thinner. However, they never ask consumers, would you like this to be thinner or would you like it to have twice the battery? Because consumers now pretty much are all saying, oh my god, we need battery. This is why we're getting all these battery packs. This is why we're getting top-up chargers here, there, and everywhere. And I think consumers have kind of gotten it through to companies that they want bigger batteries. They don't need a phone to be the thickness of a credit card. They want a phone that will actually comfortably last through an entire day and not have them afraid that it's going to keel over and die.
I wish I had the Kazam, was it the Tornado 348 down here?
Oh, the stupid
5.5 millimeters thin.
Yeah, like that's ridiculous. I mean, I keep looking at the Alcatel K10000, and it's gigantic, 10,000 milliamp hour. I really, really want to buy one.
I'm trying to get one in for review.
If you do,
if I can, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, because I don't know, because god damn it, that battery life. I mean, that literally 10,000 milliamp hour. That's potentially charged once a week.
Yeah, they say
that with a USB-C.
Yeah, you could potentially.
That's basically what I want, and I think with companies beginning to come out, I mean, I don't see Samsung coming out with a 10,000 milliamp hour battery anytime soon, but I think companies have gotten into their heads. We don't need faster processors. We don't need more cores. We don't need GPUs that can render, 8K outputs, whilst playing Crysis on the highest settings available. We want a phone that will last for a day easily, that we don't have to look at and think, oh no, I spent half of my lunchtime, checking Twitter. Oh, I better plug my phone in.
I think, yeah, like Motorola did that with the X Play. Put a 3,630 milliamp hour battery in. I use it all day. I go to bed. I usually have between 35 and 50% left. That's great, but there are issues. Like, again, we've said before, they've skimped on the processor, and it's not. It looks like metal. It's plastic. The silicon back is kind of weird. So there are. This isn't Motorola's top tier product. We're hopefully going to see them start focusing on battery in their top tier products soonish.
Yeah, well, I think hopefully that's where a lot of manufacturers are going to start going this year, because I do think we've reached a plateau for CPUs, power, and whatnot. We don't need more. The same with LTE modem categories. Cat 6 I've seen a couple of Cat 7s start coming out. That's fine because the networks don't support any of this. That's fast enough.
I think the 8890 and the Snapdragon 820 actually have Cat. I think it's Cat 10 download and Cat 6 upload or something like that. It's
but again,
stupid.
That's I mean, the networks are not supporting that. They're certainly not going to be supporting it.
Even in South Korea, they don't support this shit.
Yeah, and just because it reaches a point when you're doing stuff on your mobile, okay, once you've got 50 megabits, you know, how much quicker do you need to update Hangouts, right? Or your Facebook app, you know, how much? No, you're not doing massive downloads on your phone. You don't need your phone to be capable of doing 500 meg. What you want is the damn thing to last. And yeah, battery.
So I think that answers like question number 2 for you, which was what's your biggest gripe with mobile devices?
Battery. I think kind of as a supplementary to the battery, I kind of also have a bit of a gripe that the number of manufacturers that have decided, oh my god, we need more pixels. No, I'm sorry.
No, not more pixels.
In my hand does not need more than 1080p pixels, right? It doesn't. And also, I'd like Sony to not be the only company out there that's making phone-sized phones.
Yep, 100% agree.
Because my sister, you know, just very recently, she, you know, wanted a new phone. Her, you know, contract was up. She wanted something new. First requirement she had was something that fit her hand. So basically, her options were find a Z3 compact or find a Z5 compact. That was basically the option she had.
Yeah. All right. So, Craig, my man, do you think that 2016 will be better for mobile than 2015 was?
Better? No. Different? Yes.
Okay. Explain.
Right. So, 2015 was the year of spectacular fails in terms of CPU.
Mm-hmm.
2016, I think, is going to be the year of spectacular failures in many, many other areas and spectacular innovation in most of the areas that we already want innovation in. Going back to Mark's point, I think we're going to get phones that actually have good battery life. Just sticking with the battery a second, yes, that's one of my biggest gripes. I have a phone at the moment, which is the LETV phone, which will be reviewed relatively soon. Standby battery is good. Screen on time battery is good. Both of them together is appalling. So if you want to have a phone that you don't use for 3 or 4 hours and then pick up and use it for an hour, you can do that as long as you only want in total 10 hours of battery life. I think the combination of how the software utilizes battery and goes into deep sleep and all that good stuff, all the sort of stuff that Doze is supposed to do with Marshmallow, I think needs to be sorted, and I think that's one of my biggest gripes. I think the reason why I said spectacular fails in 2016 is I think what we've got at the moment is very, 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 very stagnant mobile technology space. Everybody in 2015 pretty much did the same thing, with a few people saying, yeah, but look, we've got 2 cameras now, or we've got a flash on the front of our selfie camera.
Which is absolutely useless. I've tested 2 phones with selfie flashes and they are useless.
And I think this is it. I think a lot of people, and Samsung probably more so, but a lot of OEMs were throwing a lot of shit at a lot of walls and hoping something somewhere stuck. And only in a very small amount of instances did that happen. I think 2016 is going to be the same, but amplified. So I think we'll get more good things just by sheer law of averages, but I think we'll get quite a lot of rumored Apple 7 dropping 3.5mm headphone jack, that sort of shit. I think we'll get a lot of that sort of stuff because someone somewhere is going to try and do something different, and again, law of averages, negative as well as positive, you're going to get a lot of failures in that regard. Battery's a big one, but the combination of how software kind of deals with them. Cameras, I'm still yet, other than maybe 3 phones in the 15 years or so that I've actually been using mobile technology religiously, have actually ever come up to scratch in terms of optics. I think that needs to change. I want a phone that I can use all day, literally all day. If I want screen on time of 6 hours and a standby time of 24 hours, that needs to happen. I
I'm
want
going to buy
decent
that
optics.
Ucatel phone with a 10,000 milliamp hour battery. I think it'll be fucking fine with that.
Yeah, but you're going to have the optics to support it. You
Oh no,
need I
everything
want
else
to
on that
see
phone
a
is a
good
piece of shit.
all-round package. And
Yeah.
at the moment, I think everybody's trying to play it safe. Echo Mark's point in terms of resolution on screens, the whole point of Sony releasing a 4K screen on the Z5 is just lost on me because there isn't 4K content. Well, not a lot of 4K content out there. I don't understand that. Again, that's another example to me of someone going, we need to do something different, guys. And that comic strip where you ask 3 people the question and then the one person ends up getting thrown out the window. That should have been that guy that said 4K on the Sony Z5, but it wasn't. I think we're going to get lots more of Sony Z5s and front-facing flashes and removing of headphone jacks so we can make the thing smaller. But equally, hopefully, we're going to also get more good batteries, more good optics, more good processors, more good innovations in terms of the utilization of USB-C and bits and pieces like that. So I think we're going to get more of everything, and you can decide whether that's good, bad, or indifferent.
Cool. So to answer your answer the second question of what's your biggest gripe with mobile currently, would you say it's the lack of a holistic device that does everything great?
My biggest
the lack of an Android device that does everything great. I mean,
there is a flagship feature on every device. I don't want a flagship feature on every device. I want a flagship phone. Give me a flagship phone with good all-round features. So 8 out of 10 on everything, and I'll be happy. There hasn't been many instances where I've been able to sit there and say that's the case. That's my biggest gripe, is the fact that there's always got to be a headline, something to grab the market, and I don't think that needs to be the case in 2016.
I'll take that. That sounds pretty damn great, actually. Do you guys really want me to answer, or can we go?
Go on, you give us a quick answer.
All right. I think 2016 will be better, but only because 2015 was such of a clusterfuck. Again, the area I'm most interested in is mobile processors and stuff like that. So I'm very much interested in the technical aspect of things. But if we go back on 2015, it wasn't just the technical or the physically technical aspects of things that went wrong. Android 5.0 had so many issues, only so many of which could have been fixed with 5.1. So a lot of things went wrong in 2015. So we had Qualcomm using TSMC's 20 nanometer planar node for the 810. Sorry, that was a mistake. We had Qualcomm releasing 8-core A53 phones with bad GPUs and bad ISPs. Very bad choice. We had Qualcomm releasing Snapdragon 400s, very great processor, on a very bad, very old 28 nanometer node. Keep it on 28 nanometer, that's fine. Use a newer, more efficient node. The 28 nanometer LP process they used is so inefficient, hilariously being the LP being low power. But it's not just Qualcomm. Everyone had issues in 2015, and I don't want to believe it can happen 2 years in a row. And again, I think that Samsung's going to figure out battery this year, because I kind of believe they have to. They're probably going to get something else wrong. Probably something they've gotten right in the years prior. They might get. God, if they get battery right this year, they might get. I don't know.
Speaking of Samsung getting something right, supposedly rumors say that they're bringing SD card slots back to the S7.
Which means absolutely fuck all to me as someone who hasn't used an SD card in like 3 years. But I understand there are a lot of people who didn't buy the S6 purely because there was no SD card slot. To me, it was negated by the fact it started at 32 gig and it was fast internal storage. But I understand for a lot of people, 32, 64, or even in some cases 128 just is not enough for them.
So what was
absolute
your biggest
weirdo.
gripe of 2015 in terms of mobile devices at the moment then?
Software. Software was so unoptimized across the board that we should have had better, but everything was written for the broad. Sorry, my chair is falling down here. Software. I need a new chair. This is so broken. Everything is kind of written broadly, especially in the Android space. But in the same way that you can get a paracetamol to fix your headache, but you can get medication custom made for your genes that will work 10 times better. Code written for your processor specifically is going to run a lot better than general code. If you want a really weird but kind of like real life comparison of that, you can download the Chrome, I think it's the Code Aurora Foundation, the CAF browser, which is a version of Chrome with specific I don't know how to say this, specific enhancements for Qualcomm Snapdragon devices. So it leverages more of the GPU and some of the DSPs it can do and stuff like that. And if you use Chrome and CAF side by side, it is night and day. So my biggest gripe would be that nothing felt optimized last year. And again, I feel like it needs to happen this year.
Okay.
So that has been Mobile Tech Talk, that has been Mobile Tech Talk's podcast, Talking Tech, episode 10. You can find us at www.mobiletechtalk.co.uk. You can find us at Twitter, which is at MTTFeed. I am at mobile_dom. Craig is at CraigyTweets. And Mark is at Mark2410. Was that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. You can get us on Instagram. We are Mobile Tech Talk. Facebook, we are Mobile Tech Talk UK. And YouTube and Google+, as always, just search for Mobile Tech Talk because they won't give us a fancy URL yet. I have been Dom. This has been Mark and Craig. Until next time, thank you.
Bye-bye.